There we go. There we go. Welcome. Everything looks like it is set to go. So, welcome back to another month of live crystal conversation about really the questions that are arising for you when it comes to crystal healing. If you are brand new to my channel and are joining me and the rest of us for the first time, welcome. I am Mary Jo Feely. I am the owner of Fourth Dimension Healing in Stillwater, Minnesota, and that is my private energy healing and crystal healing practice. I also am the director of the Center for Crystal and Healing Studies, which is my online school. And through my school, I offer a wide variety of online self-paced blended courses where you can move through content related to Reiki, energy healing, as well as crystal healing. And perhaps I'll have a chance to talk a little bit more about that later as we move through this hour together. Also, if you're new, I want to let you know that you can feel free to go ahead and chat in any questions that you may have during this live stream. The questions are not posted and on the replay. So it's just an opportunity now for those who are able to join live. And I do know that all of our schedules are very, very busy. And so I will always do my best to be the one that shows up for these opportunities. I have received a number of questions that we are going to work our way through today. And I always like to start by revisiting any questions that may still have been remaining last month. And there are actually, there is one that I wanted to talk about briefly, and then I am going to start in on a follow-up question from last month as well. So one of the questions I received last month that we didn't get a chance to talk about, as I pull my noisy rocks over here, is a question that's talking about Danburite. And the question simply is, what is Danburite? It looks like a quartz. Is it actually a type of quartz? And so I thought I would tell you a little bit about Danburite and how you can work with it within your, perhaps your crystal healing practice that you have for yourself. I do not actually have Danburite available on my online shop, but if it's something that you are looking for, I actually am going to be going to a gem show in a couple of weeks. And if that's something you would like, I will definitely look for that for you. So I'm going to show you 3 stones, and I'm showing them deliberately to you so that you can begin to get a sense that sometimes we're not exactly sure what we've got. So here is one stone, right? This is clear quartz, very common, also known as rock crystal. This is silicone dioxide. And then we have another piece. This is selenite, a very, very soft stone. This is a stone that resonates with the wind element. And so wind is about inspiration. It is about clearing mental clutter. It's helping to get a little bit better sense of what are some of those spiritual downloads, so to speak, that we are gently being invited to become consciously aware of so that we can actually move into them and work with them in our lived awareness. So selenite is a wind element stone, and I will just say that quartz is actually an element, gemstone that resonates with the storm element. And then there's Danburite. And can you see that it could be quite curious as to exactly what we've got here? So Danburite, as I'm holding it, it has a very, very, very soft, almost like a pale pinkish, almost a pale peach type of coloring to it. And it is a calcium borosilicate. And it is a wonderful stone to work with when we are working way up at the very top of the chakra column. Not only that crown chakra that comes up off the top of our head, but even those higher up energy centers known as transpersonal chakras, because they are off our personal body. This is a stone that can be very helpful when you are wanting to do some meditation work and open your awareness up to perhaps some of the guidance that you receive from your spirit helpers, some of those wisdom beings around you. So that's a little bit about Danburite. And again, you can see it might be mistaken for a piece of quartz, but it has an entirely different chemical makeup, composition. It has an entirely different structural makeup, and it's a real powerhouse of a stone when you want to work with those higher spiritual energies. And that stone, actually, the Danburite, also resonates with storm. So when you're hearing me talk about storm, it's kind of that transformational energy that can kind of shake things up a bit. Okay. So that was one we did not get to last month. And just remember that if I have questions that I don't get to, I always reach out to the people who submitted those questions so that they can get their answer right away. Okay. So here is a question. This is a follow-up from last month. And if you didn't get a chance to see last month's video replay yet, please go ahead and do that. I have timestamps within the text part of the video, so you can search out the type of question that you're looking for without listening necessarily to the whole thing. So here's the question. Hello, Mary Jo. Last month, you talked about blue calcite being a blend of both the water and the fire element. I have a green calcite gemstone and am wondering if it is also a blend of these two elements. So last month, what we talked about was that all calcites resonate with the fire element. There's this fire quality to the gemstones. And if you're not familiar with the system of elements that I work with, I have a number of videos, and you can go ahead and take a look at some of them. I'll place one somewhere right up above my left shoulder, and that's specific for the fire element stone, so you can begin to get a little bit more understanding. So when we think about the fiery component of calcite, and here's a picture of green calcite as the person asked the question, we can see that there is this kind of this nurturing quality to it. When I think of the earth energies that stream up, there are a couple of different color hues or color rays, so to speak, that move up from the earth. One is a very vibrant red, which is really full of a lot of vital energy, and the other is a very nurturing green. So when we see green stones, that is that invitation up from earth. So I would say that green calcite, along with the fire, because the whole calcite family is fiery, it's also going to have some connections with that earth. And I would also say in my work with green calcite, it also has some aspects of water as well. And so when we're looking at the different elements, and I believe it was just last month that we really kind of teased out a little bit more about what I'm talking about when I'm referencing working with the elements in combination with the properties of the gemstone. So hopefully you'll be able to find a little bit better grounding and kind of a base to support you if this is new learning. Perhaps you're hearing this kind of information for the first time. So when I am working with a stone, I'm mindful of what I understand a particular stone to be about. So we've got the calcite, it's calcium, it's a calcium bearing stone that has properties. It has a particular structure that has an influence on its healing. And then we have the elemental system. So when we think about all those and we hear about them, I would say that still what's going to be the most important for me to help you embrace is your experience with the stone. So when you're working with this stone and you don't get any sense that there's any kind of a fiery activating kind of energy, don't assume, please, that you're missing the mark. You're not. It's how you interact with the stone and how it supports you with whatever healing you're doing. That's more important. Excuse me. Going to grab a sip of water here. So I hope that answers that question. Various calcites have various types of minerals included in them, and so they're going to have a little bit different effect on overall healing. Okay, good. So I'm going to just set that one aside also, so I don't get too mixed up. Okay, here is another. This is really a fabulous question, and this is a question that I would say for this person, they're not the only one that has this question rolling around in their head. Can you please talk more about the storm element? I understand the qualities of air, earth, water, and fire elements, but I cannot get my head around storm. Why would I want to work with it? Well, I've been giving some thought to this question, and actually just before I turned the camera on and we got started, a thought came to me when I was reviewing the questions, and I kind of inwardly smiled because I think the person who wrote this says, why would I want to work with it, right? Why would we want to work with a storm? And I smile because, you know what? I think it's storm that wants to work with us. I think that's the nudge we're getting when we are finding ourselves working with storm elements. And there is a whole variety of gemstones and crystals that resonate with storm. So I thought what would be probably really fun is for me to show you some of my own personal stones that I work with that all resonate with storm. So when I'm looking here, and the bowl is fun too, isn't it? The little dish. What I'm seeing right away is quartz, and we just referenced quartz when I was talking about the Danburite and how it can sometimes be confusing if Danburite and quartz, they can sometimes almost look the same. So anytime you're working with crystals, rock crystal, any kind of a crystal that has, I would say, clear quartz as part of it, it's going to have that stormy quality, and especially when it's a clear quartz. That could be a Tibetan quartz, it could be Lemurian quartz, it could be a tumble piece, or one that's more of a natural point. The quartz is very stormy, it's very activating, it's amplifying, and it's transformational. Okay, so keep that in mind. I'm just going to dodge some of the, I have more quartz in this little pack that I'm going to ignore. Here is a piece of K2, also known as K2 jasper. This also is stormy. So we're working with the quartz, and it's really amplifying, and it's really, it's clearing things out. This, in its role as that storm element stone, it's actually helping to really reinforce and clear out and strengthen our energy field. So we've talked about, through some of the different videos, the 7 chakras that run up and down our spine. They're kind of represented in this hanging behind me that I sometimes reference. And if you can imagine below your feet and above your head, you have 2 little spinning vortex-like centers. And what they're doing is kind of creating a North Pole and a South Pole. And with the K2, its quality and resonance with storm helps to really activate that North and South Pole. And in turn, then that really clears out and strengthens the energy field, which also in turn is going to balance all of the chakras. When I'm thinking of storm element stones, they are going to support all 7 of our in-body chakras and also clear some of those above and below our body as well. So I would say that for me is kind of a blanket statement. Storm is just going to support all of those chakras all at once. Okay. Here, for example, is turquoise. So when we think of turquoise, to me, it's a very soothing stone. It reminds me of a calming water. Sometimes I get a feel that there's a little bit of a spark in there, almost like a little bit of fire. And when we think about storm element, it's not an element per se. However, it is an event that happens when all of our other elements are dynamically activated and balanced. So perhaps that's why when I'm working with this stone, even though it is a stone that resonates with storm, there are also some qualities for me of fire and water that are more prominent than sometimes the storm itself. This is also another stone that I typically do not carry in my online shop. It is really quite expensive. And again, if you're looking for real turquoise, and you're going to want to make sure that it's real turquoise if that's what you're buying, then let me know when I'm at my gem show in a couple of weeks. I might be able to help find something that you're looking for. Here is another storm element stone. This is chiastolite. I'm going to hold that. Maybe you can see that. You can always, I've mentioned it before, you can always Google these stone names and you can get some beautiful, really museum quality images if you're really trying to get a good sense of what these stones look like. So chiastolite is also known as cross stone. And then this one you can, if I stop moving a minute, right, there it is. You can see where some of the patterning with the minerals within this stone actually are able to be visible. So in this instance, the chiastolite stormstone is actually kind of like this sense of all these energies converging together and kind of harmonizing. So there again is another way for us to think about the storm element. It is an integration kind of stone. And yes, we can have integration happening in all the different chakras, and we can also have it happening kind of overall throughout our entire energy field. That would be another way of describing storm. I never go looking for a storm stone. I wait for the storm stone to find me. And how it does that is sometimes I might actually be kind of glancing over some of the different stones that I work with. And maybe my eye just lands on the chiastolite, and I look again at other stones, and I keep coming back to the chiastolite. That is the stone that I will choose to work with, because it's some of those subtle nuances of how we kind of have that intuition or just that sense or just that feeling that will help guide us as to which stone we want to work with and which stone wants to work with us. Okay. Here is an example of a storm element stone. It's a teeny tiny little Shiva lingam. And we talked about Shiva either last month or the month before. And so Shiva also, here we've got this transformation. And when we think about a Shiva, and here's another one, you can see a little bit of it over here, that Shiva represents heaven and earth. It represents the feminine, the masculine. It represents this really dynamic balance. And to really be balanced and really centered and grounded and really kind of embodying both that active kind of masculine yang energy, as it's known of in Chinese medicine, and that yin, that feminine, allowing, receptive energy, in order to really hold all of that, we have to be balanced. And that's all of those chakras being balanced. Our connection with earth moves all the way through our chakras, all the way up to the heavens, and the heavens drop down all the way through our chakras, all the way to the earth. That is another example of how storm can support us. And so whether it's a large Shiva lingam that perhaps sits somewhere in your room or your home or in your office space or wherever it is, or if it perhaps is a small one like this that you hold during meditation, or you slip in a pocket, or so I have these little cages. Sometimes I'll slip stones in and out, and that's another way I sometimes work with Shiva. I'm going to pull two others. This is a piece of red-capped amethyst, and while we're sometimes familiar with amethyst being a purple form of quartz, it's one of the 5 quartz families. I'll pop that little video up here too, that It'll give you a little bit more information about the quartz family. While we're familiar with the amethyst is kind of more windy. It connects up with wind element and it's up in our brain space. And then there is a fair amount of hematite found in these in this particular type of crystal, and that's very anchoring and grounding. Hematite is iron. And so you again here, do you see the heaven and earth connection? Do you see the grounding and also the top of the energy field? That's a good example of storm. And then there was one other one. Actually, there are two more besides this one I want to show you. Here's another piece of calcite. Fire for sure, and also very stormy. When I look at a piece of zebra calcite, I think of all the layers. And when we're working with storm, we are clearing layers. We're clearing some of the layers we're consciously aware of. We're clearing out some old patterns that aren't helpful. And while it seems like it would be really bumpy when we're working with storm, actually what we're learning to do is to be very calm within the center of that storm. So allowing that that clearing to take place and the shifting and the releasing of whatever it is that we're in the process of clearing, whether it's emotional, whether it's a thought pattern, whether it is some energetic patterning or some stuck energy, for lack of a better word, that's kind of locked itself into our physical body. Working with a stone such as zebra calcite can really spin things out, okay? The other two stones I just want to mention, I also do not carry them in my online shop, at least not yet. And so again, if this is something you're interested in, let me know and I'll see what I can find at my show in a couple of weeks. This is hyperseed, and it is an amazing stone that connects us up into that higher realm where our wisdom helpers, our wisdom beings, the angels, our spirit guides. And that simply means we have to shift out of our day-to-day consciousness in a way that helps us quiet so that there's less noise. It's kind of like we pretty much live pretty staticky. And what we're doing is by calming our thoughts, bringing our awareness perhaps simply to our breath before we start working with some of these stones, it helps calm things down. We quiet down, and then we're able to make a more intentional connection with some of that higher guidance. And the other one is seraphinite, and this is a gorgeous little stone. Whoops, they are slippery sometimes. So this is a small piece, and I like to remind you at this point that you don't need a large stone. You could have a really large piece of seraphinite. You could have a small piece of seraphinite. It's going to support you. So don't feel like you have to run out and buy a lot of the really big stones. And they're gorgeous, of course. But you don't need to do that kind of work. Small stones, and you can see I'm pulling out a lot of them that are simply about the size that I could hold inside my hand while I meditate or when I'm praying. Could be that I do some resting with them on or around my chakras. So I hope that that answered that question around the storm element, because it can seem a little awkward and like, why would I want to do that? And occasionally we do. We do have to do that deeper work. Okay. All right, let me check chat. So far, so good. All right, so this is a question that I'm going to reference, and I actually made notes because I want to make sure I didn't miss pieces. So you might see me referencing that. This question says, I heard on one of your podcasts that you were talking about minerals. Please explain more about this. Okay, great question. If you are new to my work or perhaps not aware that I have a podcast, I do have the Ask, Learn, Heal podcast. You can find it wherever you get your podcast, Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you find it. Also, you can go directly to asklearnheal.com and you can access my podcast episodes there. They really range from self-care and energy healing to crystal healing, some guidance around how just to cope, right? There's lots of intensity going on in our world. And so I typically have a broader brush that I stroke as I'm painting that podcast. If there is a particular topic that you would love to have me explore on my podcast, please just send me an email, send me a chat, give me a call, and I'd be happy to explore that. All of my podcast episodes actually include a guided meditation, which again allows you to be able to hear some of the information and the content and then shift into integrating that information into a way that you can actually access it. So I offer that. And this particular episode, I wrote it down. The episode that this person was referencing is my episode, How Crystals Complement Healing. And you can, again, find that at www.asklearnheal.com. And if you're viewing live, you can see some of those different links to my online school, to my podcast, and to my online shop as well. Okay. So the question is about how the minerals impact healing. And so I wanted to just talk about a few of the minerals. And one of the minerals I want to mention is aluminum. Now, aluminum is a very calming and soothing mineral. And so it can be really helpful when maybe our thoughts are kind of blocked and we're working on clearing that out. It helps us focus. It's very calming to the nervous system. So if we approach selecting crystals and gemstones to work with for healing, and if we approach them through the lens of the mineral, it's a way to guide us as to which stones we might want to consider working with. And so I want to just offer 3 examples of stones that are aluminum bearing. So they have aluminum in them, and you can get a little bit more sense about them. So this is blue kyanite. Blue kyanite is also a storm element stone. It's a wonderful stone to balance those 7 chakras. There was a time when I worked with this stone very intensely for 2 months because I was working on some of the patterns that were in the process of being cleared, and I needed the support of, I would say, that calming, that nervous system kind of settling and clearing. And so this can be a lovely stone to work with, blue kyanite. Another example of an aluminum bearing stone would be dumortierite. Dumortierite is a wind element stone. It's really wonderful for helping to calm the brain space, calm the mind, settle things down, help us focus. You can see that some of these qualities that are really aligned with the wind element really make sense when we're also taking a look at a particular mineral. And so this is a great stone. And dumortierite, I just love it. It's always so smooth, and it's just really fun, the different shapes that it comes in. Then we also have lapis lazuli, which is another stone that works particularly well up at the brow chakra. It helps to clear, draw in some insight. It also is a wonderful stone that helps bring that clarity and drop it down into that heart center, because we need our heart to open up, to accept and nurture ourselves and all of the blips and blops of life that happen to us. And as we soften and nurture ourselves, it gives us an ability to kind of, chill out, right? Just kind of settle, let things be. And lapis is a great stone to work with. So those are examples of some that would have aluminum as their mineral. Here's another one. Bring this baby over here. So another stone that's vital for physical structure. It's really important for our bones and for our muscles. It supports growth, right? It is really helpful for stabilizing us, whether it's emotionally becoming more stable or physically becoming more stable, and that is calcite, or calcium rather, and it's found in calcite. And so I have two different kinds of calcite, again, to show you. Here is orange calcite, and I do work with some tumbled calcite, but I would say most of what I have available is going to be the raw calcite. Actually have some orange calcite that's tumbled. So if that's something you're looking for, you can go out to my online shop, take a look, and always reach out to me if you're not seeing what you're looking for. Okay. So here we've got the qualities and the properties of calcium, also supporting that work that we do with the fire element. Here, more zebra calcite. Boy, this is the day for zebra calcite, right? Again, calcite, we know its properties related to the storm element, and also we know that it can be so helpful in getting ourselves stabilized. Another calcium stone that I brought is blue apatite. Now, blue apatite is also very helpful for working up in clearing and calming the brain. And this is a wind element stone. So you can see that we can have calcium stones that really fall all over the place when it comes to which chakras they support and how they impact healing. So this is blue apatite. Again, very helpful for muscles and bones. I remember working with somebody once who had some fractures, and that was a stone that they were working with. And then we have selenite. So I've talked about selenite before. In fact, we had that little piece right here that we pulled out. Remember when we were talking about the Danburite? So this is a great piece. I've talked about it. You can look up other parts or other videos. There, I'll put that one up there too, about selenite. And so this is an example of also a stone that is very helpful for bones and tissues. It's not at all uncommon for me when I'm working with a client that is having some structural issues. Perhaps they have some strains, they are recovering from a fracture, they've got tendonitis, something like that, that I will work with these stones. Sometimes actually, let me see if I can do this without dropping it, actually laying a stone on the area that is being worked on. So I would say that these are just some examples of how we can work with calcium to support that healing. And then from knowing which mineral we want to work with, drilling down a bit to find the stone that will support us as well. Just moving my notes. I don't want to get confused here. Then we've got copper. All right. So copper is a wonderful stone to help reduce inflammation, and it helps reduce pain. If you've been watching, right, I've got this tendonitis and it's pretty good right now, but it's been barking off and on for over a year. And so I always have my malachite stone bracelet, which is loaded with copper. And here is another piece of malachite. It's this gorgeous stone, fiery. So when we think about the fire can be really a hot fire. And yet when we're sore, when our joints hurt, what we might want is like a warm cloth on them, maybe putting our hands in a nice warm hand soak. If our feet are sore, maybe putting them in a nice warm foot bath. So sometimes we just take a hot, warm bath because that will help our aching body. So that's an example of how the copper in the stone kind of also aligns with some of the fire that we find quite soothing when we're hurting. It conducts electricity. It's very helpful for getting those pain receptors kind of settled down and calmed down. And it can also activate some of the empathy within us as well. So when we are not feeling well, when we're in pain, we tend to get a little snarky until we are able to shift and settle into a place that's a little bit more gentle. Here's another example of a copper-bearing stone, and that is chrysocolla. This is a water element stone with fire, right? So we've got a little of that active fire energy in it as well. And yet it's a very clearing stone, particularly for that throat chakra. It could be worked with at the brow chakra and also at the heart chakra, okay? And then we have Larimar, and it was either last month or the month before we talked about Larimar. I think it was last month. Here again, this is actually a fire water stone, has a lot of copper in it, so we can work with it very intentionally when we are wanting to decrease inflammation, decrease pain, and increase growth. And we grow when our cells are relaxed, getting what they need, whether it is us having the ability to take a nice deep breath and oxygenate better, which means our cells get better oxygen, which means our cells work better. And then that cascade effect from that breath through the exhalation just brings all this beautiful healing. The healing processes just line up the way they were intended to line up. So that's an example, I would say, how we can work with copper. Another important mineral is iron. And iron is really important for cardiovascular functioning. It's found in our hemoglobin, which is the part of the blood cell that actually hooks onto the oxygen. And so we have to have an appropriate hemoglobin level. It is very stimulating for that vital life force energy. And so when I was referencing earlier on in this Q&A, I made reference to having kind of like this green energy that's nurturing from the earth, and then also this kind of vital red energy. That's what I'm referencing here when I'm talking about iron. And here's that red-capped amethyst. It's the iron here that's making that strong earth connection, while the amethyst up at the top is connecting up with the heavens. So we've got some stones that are really helpful when we are working with that strong kind of connection with a vital energy to get our system really empowered. That's a good word, empowered, okay? So here's hematite, iron ore. It's very heavy. Sometimes you can find it magnetized. I don't work with magnetized hematite simply because it has been treated to become magnetic for the most part. And so I do work with this non-magnetized. And so you may see it out there. I don't carry it, but it would be something that you might be interested in. So this is going to be very anchoring and grounding. It's going to really help when we feel like we're really pooped, we're running out of steam. Sometimes when I've had bad headaches, I will actually work with some hematite to help rebalance and get more grounded so I can get that upper chakra area that's out of balance and kind of a bit discombobulated. When I have a bad headache, I can kind of get that energy flowing better. So that's hematite. Another one would be pyrite. We know that as fool's gold, okay? And this again is sometimes I have a sense that there's a quality of fire in it, and a little bit perhaps, mostly it's going to be earth, at least in my experience. And so while both of these have iron and both of these are very earthy and grounding, they both have quite different internal structures. This is an isometric or cubic structure. This is hexagonal. It means it's going to have six different, the molecules of the crystal pull together in 6 different formats, very much like a quartz. So you can't necessarily tell when you're looking at a stone, just as we gaze at it, what its internal structure is. And so in this case, we're working with the mineral iron, and knowing that if we also are really working on stabilizing and want to double down on that, maybe working with pyrite would be a great one. And then here we have a piece of iolite. And I think I talked about iolite most recently in a Rock Talk video. I have little short, about 5 or 6 minute long videos about a number of different gemstones and crystals, and I call them Rock Talk videos. And there's a playlist on my channel that you can take a look at. And it's just a real quick way to get a general sense of some of the ways that the different stones can be helpful for you. And so I know I did one recently on iolite. I'm honestly not recalling if we've talked about that recently within the context of this live Q&A. I do tend to get things a little mixed up sometime. So probably I should work with more of this iron, right? Get grounded and get that system balanced. There's one other mineral that I want to talk with you about, and that's silicone. So when we think about silicone, and you heard me reference earlier silicone dioxide, which is quartz. Here's a piece. There you go. This one's pretty water clear, but they're not all water clear. Some of them might be super milky, like the back side of this one is. They're all quartz. So you may want one that's really clear, or you may want one that's full of mystery and has lots of occlusions and lots of little caverns. You get to pick what you want to work with. So quartz is very amplifying. It will support and amp up the properties of the other stones that you may be working with along with the clear quartz. And it has an ability to clarify, and it clears other gemstones and crystals. So for example, let me go back to that little Shiva. No, I'm going to pick the chiastolite, simply because it's got a flat surface. So I could put the chiastolite on top of this quartz and let them rest, and that chiastolite will be able to kind of clear out any distorted energies that it may have picked up during a healing session. So anyway, that is one way you can work with it. And it also, silicone in general is going to support the immune system. So again, when we think about when we're sick, our energy field is distorted. It may be that we're dealing with upper respiratory, strep throat. That's going to be certainly more in this space of these chakras, and yet it's also influencing everything else. So when we think about quartz being able to support the immune system, it does that clearing of the chakras. At this point, I will pause and say, please remember, crystal healing is considered complementary and alternative. It does not replace your traditional allopathic medicine. So if you're sick, please reach out to your healthcare provider. If you have been injured, please reach out to your healthcare provider and get that taken care of. And then also know that you've got the gemstones and crystals that can also support you as you're moving through that healing process. So I wanted to say that, just to remember that. So that's clear quartz. When we think of silicone, because it's found in quartz, it's going to also show up in any other stone that has quartz in it, which means it's opened up to quite a lot of stones. Here, for example, is a piece of carnelian. Carnelian is considered a chalcedony, which is a form of quartz that has other minerals in it that changes its properties a little bit and changes its color. But chalcedonies tend to be kind of a translucent form of quartz. And then we have what we know of as jaspers, and I brought a couple just as examples. We've got red jasper, and we've got rainforest jasper. And so these you can't see through. They're more opaque. So opaque forms of quartz are often referenced as jaspers. The K2 that we saw earlier as a storm element stone, here it is. This also has some jasper in it, okay? So I bring that up because when we're working with stones that have silicone, if our approach is that we want to have some amplification, we want to have some clarification, maybe we want to ramp up our immune system and start with silicone, then we can, again, take a look at some of those different stones that have silicone. Here is a piece of rhodonite. Rhodonite is pretty fiery, some earth, and it has silicone dioxide in it. So it actually is not technically a form of quartz, but it has quartz in it. So those are just some examples of how the minerals can introduce us to some stones, and then the stones introduce us to some of the work that we're doing. So I hope that answered that question. These two questions in a sense are kind of similar, so I'm just going to answer these now. This first question says, I'm new to all of this. Can you tell me more about some of your crystal classes, especially those for a beginner like me? Yes. So you can take a look, and the links are below this video. Go out to check my Center for Crystal and Healing Studies webpage. You will get a sense of which of my crystal courses that I offer that might be a good connection for you. I have a couple of beginning or kind of baseline courses. One is called Digging Deeper into Crystal Healing, and one is actually called Crystal Grids 1. Both of those are really designed for a person who really doesn't know much about working with crystals. And, to be honest, we all start somewhere. And I remember doing the same kind of work that many of you are doing, is starting at the beginning and learning, and then it builds upon itself as we learn more and we work with the stones and we have our own personal experiences with the stone. And so I'm saying it again, it's your personal experience that's going to probably be your best teacher. So I would say take a look at that. When you go out to my online school, if you haven't already signed up, please do. Just go ahead and sign up for free. And when you do that, you can access some of my free mini courses. And I do have a couple of mini courses that are designed with an introduction to gemstones. One is a chakra balancing mini course, and one is an introduction to crystal grids. So those would be a couple of ways that you could access, again, for free, some mini courses, see which one might resonate. And then from there, you may want to take the step into actually enrolling in one of my other courses. You could also access a couple of my eBooks, one of which is about crystal healing, and the other one is about self-healing. And really the two go hand in hand. And then also, as part of my online school, I have a dedicated space. It's called Community, which is a platform where you can connect with others who are studying the same types of courses you are. It's often where I will have my most interaction with one-on-one with students, because it's more private than some of the other social media platforms that I do use from time to time. Okay. So I would say take a look at those two classes and also take a look at the mini courses. And if you're watching this live and or in this next couple days yet, I am currently we're right in the middle of my spring sale where you can get 15% off. So if you're serious about it, you may want to think about that. The other question says here, hello, I've been watching your crystal conversation and I am learning so much. You have mentioned that you have free mini courses and ebooks available. How do I access them? There you go. Head on out to that website, sign up or log in. If you've already done that, maybe it's been a while since you logged in, go ahead and do that and check things out. Okay. I have another question here that, I can really relate to. It says, I have a lot of stress in my life. What crystals will help me relax? We all have a lot of stress. And as we're learning how to kind of navigate life, and it's pretty wild, right? It's wild in the world. It's sometimes pretty wild in our personal lives or in our communities. And so learning how to identify what it is that you need is going to be really helpful. One of the things I'd like to suggest when you're feeling a bit stressed or a bit, just unsettled, is to just take a couple minutes, slow your breathing down, grab a cup of tea, grab a puppy or a kitty if you have one in your home, and just calm down and spend a little bit of time asking yourself what it is that you need. Because sometimes we're stressed because we've almost been too isolated. So what we need to do is actually get out into the world. Sometimes we've been out in the world too much and we actually need to just kind of detach, unplug, and just, maybe read a good book or find a movie or TV show that just gives us belly laughs. Maybe that might be what you're looking for. So when we think about crystals that can help us relax, I think it's helpful to figure out what is it that we need, and then from there, move into the work with the crystals. So let's say, for example, I'm going to pull out 2 stones to start with. They both have some green in them, okay? So we know they're going to be nurturing. And the one here in my right hand is green moss agate. It has sodium, or not sodium, it has silicone dioxide in it, so it's got some quartz in it. And it is predominantly an earth stone with some water, but pretty much earth. So it's got this real gentle kind of grounding, nurturing, kind of settling type of energy to it. This is how this particular stone can be quite helpful. So if that's what we're feeling after we've done that little mini check-in, that's really what's going to help us to settle down, then this could be a really wonderful stone to work with, because it's working kind of down in these lower chakras and some up into that heart space, kind of getting that body settled. When we look at the chakras, the first 3, the root, the sacral, and the solar plexus, that has to do with physical, emotional, and mental aspects of life. So I would say a great amount of the work we do, especially when we're stressed, especially when we're unsettled, is kind of getting settled back in our body, get into our bones, get into our tissues, get into our muscles, and be present. So that's where that earth piece comes in. And knowing that this gentle work can be done with a stone such as green moss agate is really beautiful. And this also, as I mentioned, has some green in it. It is rainbow fluorite. Fluorite works way up here in this windy part of our brain. And so it may be that as you're doing your little check-in with yourself, you're finding that you really need some clarity. You need to get some thoughts uncluttered, detangled, so that you can have a better flow within your brain space. Working with fluorite might be a really great way to take away some of that stress. Rose quartz here is an example. Rose quartz is very nurturing, very, very helpful with teaching us how to embrace compassion for ourselves. We really cannot be truly compassionate to others if we are not able to also open it up to ourselves. And I say that carefully because, of course, we can all do random acts of kindness and sometimes really intentional, compassion-filled graceful types of actions to others. And that touches us and that changes us. The rose quartz helps us to welcome that same compassion we're showing to another, bringing it into ourselves as well. So rose quartz can be a really wonderful stone if that is what may be causing you a sense of distress. This is one of my favorite stones to work with, hands down, and it's charoite. Charoite is a stone that supports the brain and the heart space. It is a wind element stone. It is so nurturing. I work with it almost daily. I almost sometimes feel like, oh, rats, I didn't get a chance to work with charoite today if my schedule is such that I just don't get to do that. But that is another way to, what do we need when we're really feeling stressed? Maybe what we need is a calm and centered heart. That would be an example of where we can work with charoite. And then one other one I want to pull out is green aventurine. So green aventurine is earth. It resonates with water. Water is emotions. So if we're feeling super stressed, and it's not thought-based as much as it's feelings, maybe our emotions are going on roller coasters, maybe what we could benefit from in this case would be a earth, earth element and water element stone that can support that balancing of earth and water and get our emotions kind of settled back down. We're always going to have give and take. We're designed that way. We're never stagnant or set in a particular structure for long because our human energy field is constantly shifting back and forth, which is why as you begin to work with gemstones and crystals, you start to realize, I've got some I go to a lot and some I don't visit often, yet I have a variety of them available, just like friends, right? You may have a number of friends and you know which friends to go to when you're looking for a particular kind of support. And then there are going to be the storm element friends that give you the knock on the door. They text you, they call you, and they say, hey, how you doing? Let's talk. Let's go out for some coffee. Can I come over? Let's go out for a walk. So that's the way, in my experience, the stones kind of tap on our shoulder and knock at our door as well when they are inviting us into some healing that we aren't consciously aware of. Because ultimately, all of the choices and the work we're doing is happening and being guided by that part of us, that inner healer within us that knows which stone is going to be most helpful, knows that what really need more than holding any stone is to eat a meal and go take a nap. So in that way, I'm hopeful that I'm kind of expressing how to begin to notice which stones are drawing your awareness, which stones are you not particularly working with right now, and that's fine. Okay. So we've had a good conversation, and so I like to just recap. If I can remember how to recap, right? Oh, we talked about Danburite and what that is and a little bit about it. And again, I'm going to be going to a rock show that first weekend in April. So you let me know if there's something you want me to look for you. We talked about green calcite and does that also resonate with fire and earth? And we talked about that. We explored storm element stones and how, while they all resonate with storm, they also all have different qualities and gifts that can support us with whatever's arising for us. We explored some of the minerals, the approach of taking a look at what mineral will support healing, and then from there identifying which gemstones or crystals that contain those particular minerals might be helpful. And I talked about my podcast and that how crystals complement healing episode. That's, I think, one of my more recent episodes. And then we did that. Oh, and we talked about how crystals and gemstones can help us relax. And we also chatted just a little bit about how to know which particular crystal class might be a good fit. I actually just today on Facebook posted a video specifically about this, kind of talking about my different crystal courses and helping a person decide which one they may want to explore more deeply. If you've been working with gemstones and crystals for a while and are ready to do more advanced work, I offer an advanced crystal healing course. I offer a crystal healer mentorship course as well. That has 2 tracks. One for the person who's in the process of becoming a certified crystal healer, and they're part of my crystal healer certification program. And then the other track is specific for people who are doing crystal healing work for themselves and want to be very intentional about how to work with that, with crystal healing very intentionally for their own deepening growth. And so again, reach out to me if you have questions about that. Next month, I am going to be offering this again. I'm going to stick on Thursdays. It's going to generally be about the 3rd Thursday of the month. Obviously, we play around with that a little bit, but for the most part, I'm going to try and land on Thursdays to do these live Q&As, so you can kind of block that into your calendar. And it will be on Thursday, April 18th from 6 to 7 p.m. Central. again, joining me live if you can. Of course, I get that replay up as soon as I can. I try to do that within a few days of this actual live conversation, and it may or may not happen by the end of the weekend, but it will happen in due time. So I hope this has been helpful. Let me know what questions you've got so we can explore those coming up next month. For now, I simply wish you many blessings. Be well.